Welcome back to C2s and K5s. Today we're going to be doing the rear brakes on the C10. I've got to do the rear drums, the wheel cylinder, and then I've got a leaky brake line. So we're just going to replace the main line that comes away from the front as well as the lines that are in the back. So we're going to redo the whole thing. So we will get to that here. So it took some beating, but I got the drum off. Had to put some PP plaster on there and beat on it for a while, but it came off. These shoes have a lot of meat, but they're really worn. They've got big gouges in them. So I'm just gonna replace all this stuff. I've got it all anyways. If I'm doing the wheel cylinder, I might as well just do all the hardware as well here. So I know you've all seen drum brake work done before, but hopefully this will help you a little bit. The best way I can say to do this is to do one of these at a time. And when I take these springs out and the hardware, I kind of lay them down on the ground here next to my jack stand, just to see kind of where they go. So that way if I have trouble, I can put it back together, I see where they go. Or I go and I look at the other side and I see which way these springs are and which way some of this hardware is attached, because they all pretty much are this very similar process, or I should say similar layout. But sometimes there's extra brackets or extra things here and there. So these are always my least favorite. So you got push in, you got twist the pin. It's got like a slot there. Just gotta pull that out. So that one's out there. So it's a little cut behind it. We've got new hardware, but we're still gonna put everything where it's supposed to go. Take this spring off. Or you know, you can always take pictures too. Take pictures of all the stuff as you're going. So that way you can reference that when you got to put it back together. These little pins here in the wheel cylinder, they just sit in there, so you got to be careful with those. I'm pretty sure I have to reuse these, but you just kind of have to remember the orientation they go in, because they have to fit in that slot there, like that orientation. So take that one, probably take that spring off on the back. And then here's our brake adjuster. Looks like I think I had that thing off last time and cleaned that. There's the pin for that cup we did first. Let's get this other cup spring out of here. There we go. And then this bar can come out. We'll lay that down there so you know which side the spring was on. And it looks like this piece needs to come out of there. And I'm gonna put this all together like that. Put that spring back in that little slot where it was, so that way I know which side it was on. And here's our other pin for the other side of the cylinder, and you can see that cylinder boot is ripped. I don't know how old these are, but I'm guessing they're not exactly the newest. There's our adjuster. There's our spring that held the bottom two together. So it was like that, so I just set it right there. I don't know if we can zoom in on that. There's a lot of meat left, but it's gouged. That should be pretty smooth. And then lay that shoe there. And this one looks like it's got like a snap ring on it or something, but maybe we can push that out. All right, we got her off. Hopefully you can see that little C-clip. That little thing is what held that pin in there. So this has got like a little spring washer on the inside of it. So it's supposed to be bent like that, so it pushes on a little, put pressure on it. So we can put those two together there. So that's gonna have to stay there. This is all full of dirt and gunk. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take a little bit of time here and I'm going to clean some of this up. All right, so I finally got the wheel cylinder off. I'm replacing all the line, so I ended up just cutting that off because I couldn't get that thing loose. And if you're going to, you need to make sure you use these line wrenches, because otherwise you're gonna round these off. And I'm sure that's probably what happened previously, because I couldn't get that on. That's a 3/8 and it just, of course, now wants to fit. Of course it does. Didn't want to fit before. That's your bleeder screw there. You gotta save those 2 bolts because you're gonna reuse those. But as you can see, this thing is pretty sad. I'm sure it's probably was leaking too, but literally for the, what, $7 or $8 this was on Rock Auto, it's not even worth trying to rebuild or mess around with. I just toss them. Just get a brand new one and put it in there. So next we're gonna clean this up a little bit. All right, so here's my new wheel cylinder. So there's your bleeder screw. If it's got that little dust cap, I would just keep it on there. There's your cap for your brake line that's gonna go in there. We'll leave that cap on there for now, just because obviously we don't want any dust and dirt getting in there. All right, we're gonna have to get a replacement for the other screw because that one got all ripped to hell. It's all, that thing got all torn up too. So we'll get a new one of those. Get that later, but for now, I need to get this. Oh shit, I spun that one. So I'm just gonna get new hardware for both sides. All right, so now we got our new shoes. We gotta make sure that we have the right ones. So we'll line them up like this. Thank you. We line them up like that, and that is not the same. Make sure the pad is aligned in the same spot. That's not it either. Because obviously there's fronts and there's backs. Because you can see these are different. So one is going to be for one side. That looks like that's the front side. The pad needs to be basically the same. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be close enough. And then you can see the back is a different size there also. So that looks like that's another front. Then I've got 2 backs here. And also make sure those, all your mounting holes are all the same and in the same position. This part doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but it needs to be close enough. So I'm gonna leave that one there. One thing I like to do first is I get these cups put in here for those springs. These little cup springs that go on the side, and this thing goes through the hole right here. So this thing's gonna go here. If you've got a second person to help you with this, it's even better, because this is probably one of the reasons why I hate doing drum brakes the most, is this little thing right here. And everybody's got it. Every single design you come across. That seems strange. Strangely easy. Looks like they're the same length. That seemed way too easy. Unless I need to put the bigger springs on. Ooh. I was wrong. Did come in with another one of those little C-clips. So we've got the green and the yellow springs. So I don't know which ones we're supposed to use, because those are real short and these are real long. Maybe that's why this one's so easy to do. All right, and then we have our pin here that goes in the master cylinder, and that's gonna have to go in there like that, and it's gonna have to go in there so that stays in that position. Now we might as well put this one onto here. I think it was way up there, wasn't it? Or was it this one? Yeah, I think it was that one. This clip does look a little bit different. But we've got that little wavy washer that goes on there first to help hold that tension. So we're going to try this one. This would be so much easier if I did this on a workbench. Oh, that's fell off my finger. Seems like it should go on there a little bit more than that. There we go. And if worst comes to worst, you can always reuse the old one, because the old one felt like it held a lot better than this one. This new one is about the same size. Does the inner part looks about the same. The outer part's a little bigger, but should be good there. All right, so I'm gonna put that one in. Let's put our other cup spring in here. So this part's got to go in there first, of course. And then pin through the back side. All right, clean those up a little bit, just in case there's stuff on the outside of that pin. I don't want it rubbing on the boot and tearing a hole in the new boot. So might as well take that extra little bit of time. Clean that up. Save yourself a little bit of trouble. So and I just crap. Got ahead of myself. This part needs to, that cup spring needs to go through there. Dang it. Alright. And that's why I'm doing this. To show you guys, to learn from my mistakes. So, there's a little spring there. This bar's got to go back in here. It's going to have to slide in there because this one is going to have to go in further, like that. Once we get these springs in. All right. So here's a trick. I'm gonna try this. Get this over here. Get this pin. Get this screwdriver over the head of that pin, and then it should slide over that thing. There we go, like that. Whew. That's a pain in the ass. That is a pain in the ass. Gotta bend that thing down a little bit so we can get that bar with the spring in place. There we go. There, that's supposed to be like that. that. This one is supposed to go like that, and then this one is supposed to go like this. So we got this spring on, that one connects there, that connects down here. We got our little springy down here. This, oops, needs to stay hooked up here. This is going to slide into the bottom slots, and I would suggest doing that first, because you can adjust this with this star wheel, so you can adjust that for the correct tension on your shoes. So you're actually using it, so actually working instead of just riding and not applying any pressure. And then this spring has got to go down by the bottom here too. It's going to connect to those. And these babies are probably all right. Springs in there, the adjuster's in there. We can adjust this later. So get all this stuff sitting in here where it's supposed to sit. Now, I have revelation. I think the reason why I've got 2 yellow and 2 green springs is because that one's supposed to be the green because it's longer. It's going to hold better tension, and that orange or yellow one's shorter because it's got that extra bracket to deal with. So as much as I really don't want to do this, I'm going to swap it out. I swapped that green one out, and that was pretty difficult, but I got it. Eventually I got it. So we're back to we had to take all these pins off, or all these springs off. So these are back on. That one's back on. That's back in. My push pin here is back in. So now we're gonna do this bottom spring again. Remember, we gotta go in from the back. Basically what you'll do is you'll adjust this thing out where your brake shoes are gonna be pulling. Now, usually there's a hole in the back, like in the back side where the star wheel is, because that's where it comes to these new plugs. There's supposed to be a hole back there, so you can adjust it from the inside, because otherwise there's not really any way to adjust it. But we're just going to go with it for now. So the new wheel cylinder is in. I need a new bolt for the back, and like I said, I had to cut that brake line because it was all jacked up. So I'm gonna do brake lines next and get those connected, just in case I need any other hardware other than that. So this one's pretty much done other than being adjusted. But what we can do is we can put our drum back on. There shouldn't be. Shouldn't be. There we go. There's a little bit of drag on it. It's not too bad. See our brake line that we had to cut comes up over here. It's got some clips that hold it in place, and then of course there's our other line over here. I'm just probably cut that off, so I really don't care what's going on with this one, because like I said, that wheel cylinder is going to get replaced also. And then up here is a T-joint, and I've got a rubber hose on the back of that. That rubber hose, you can see, goes up in there, and under to the top of where this spring is, there's a connection to the the brake line that goes all the way to the front, and that's where our leak is in that long one. So might as well just replace all of it. So we've got these little horseshoe clips here that hold it, and there's one up there holding the other end of that rubber line. So what we're going to do then is we're going to start cutting these open. Now, if we were worried about brake fluid, we could put our brake, our oil pan underneath here and catch this stuff, but we don't have to worry about that right now. So, Let's try and see if we can get these to come off here. Let's see if we can get these. These are 3/8, and like I said before, make sure you use a line wrench, because otherwise you're just gonna, there we go. You'll end up stripping these heads off, and then you'll end up having to replace the whole brake line anyways. Yeah, see, she's twisted. Alright, so that's alright. We know we're gonna have to replace it. We're replacing all these anyways. Let's see how the line twisted there. Next one over here, I'm just gonna cut that. It's not even worth trying to unbolt. Now remember this too. Brake fluid will eat away your paint. So if you got a nice paint job, you need to be real careful with this stuff. And this is a 9/16. Let's see if we can't spin her off. Or at least we're working this thing loose. Gotta get this brake fluid cleaned up. Like this thing, it's good to save just in case you need it. Mine came with a new one, but just in case. Jesus. All right, well this is a 9/16, and that's a 5/8 on the other end of this, on the end of the hose. So we got a new one of those. When you take this thing off, because this other end of the rubber hose has to go through that, like that. Probably could. Do this right now if we want to, since we're right here. We got our pan for this, because that's going to go through. It's got to go through this, so the new clip can hold it. There we go. Gotta get it through there so this slot can feed, so we can feed this through the slot. Now, so the other end of the new hose is a 5/8 inch. This will hold a 9/16 just about perfectly. So tighten that up. It's not moving. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to see what I'm doing with these other brake lines. Looks like that one's going to go there. And then I've got the long one. The long one is going to go, threading this in here. Make sure you're not going at an angle. Make sure you're going in nice and straight. We can do some light bends here to make sure that we're straight on this thing, because right now we're not. So straight on. And if it doesn't feel like it's going in right, just stop and back it out, because more than likely you're in a position where you're gonna cross thread it, and then you're just gonna have to go get a new brake line. And you can just snug it for now. And then I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and put these clips in here, and I'm gonna connect it to the cylinder over there. Up here. I'm gonna put our clips in. And I'd say first, what we need to do is we need to get this cut out of there. And make sure you don't get stuff on the end of these. because you don't want crud getting in here. And we got her in there too tight. I'm not sure what's going on. Alright, it's at an odd angle, so I'm gonna back it out. So we want to make sure we're going in here nice and square. There we go. That feels a lot better. So the coupler here is a 1/2 inch, so we're going to use a 1/2 inch wrench and hold that. And then my end of my brake line is a 7/16. There we go. And I already hit it with some PB Blaster, let it soak a little bit. So that should be it. Just going to disconnect this one, and I've already cut it off the end, so I don't have to worry about feeding this whole hose, but get this thing disconnected and then we'll feed the new line in. So there's 2 of these clips, just 2 of this style, that held it on to the frame rail. So this wraps around there, and then this piece right here, it mushroomed out. I had to pinch that back in to get it to come out. So hopefully I can put that back through that hole in the frame and maybe take a screwdriver and bend that back out. Maybe that'll work, but it's weird because there's only 2 of those and they're towards the back. And of course, it didn't come with new ones, so we're just gonna have to deal with that for now. So let's try and salvage these 2, and if not, we'll just put some regular old hose clamps on there and screw it to the inside of it. So got that. Got our 2 clips. We're gonna try and feed the new. So this part that has this right angle is gonna go up inside the frame. Remember, right up above where the coil spring was, and that's gonna connect to the rubber hose. The other end is gonna connect there, and then we've got a clip. So we're gonna feed this in here. We're gonna get the 2 ends screwed together securely, and then we'll go through and we'll worry about putting all of our clamps back on there. There's some more on the frame that held onto the frame that were not the same as those 2 little ones we just took off. But we're gonna try and get this in here. When this came, this was like folded into thirds, and it doesn't look the prettiest, but right now this is, I mean, it works. It didn't bend, it didn't crack. I used a brake line bender tool to kind of straighten that out because I didn't want to kink it and have cracks. And it's not perfect, but we're not here to win awards. We're here to, this is kind of a DIY, keep the thing running for the time being and doing it on a budget. So we'll get this in here, we'll get this going. Like that. Feeding this all the way through my A-frame in the front. There we go. Now I'm going to bring it back. And we just get it fed through and in the general vicinity where it needs to go. General area. So here's the other end of our hose. And that's going to connect there. And then we've got another, we have to use our old clip again. We've got our old right here. All right, so we've got our line there. And it comes that little dust cap. Keep that thing on. You don't want to have to mess with that, because we've been messing around over here and that thing would have got full of dirt. So I'm gonna take this cap off. We're gonna try and attach this hose, and then this clip will go back through on the inside and we'll hold it against this slot there. Okay. Alright, so I got that one back on there. Put that back in there. When it comes out the other side here. So when it comes out the other side here, I just kind of twisted that back out. And it seems to be holding okay. And we've got one more up here. We're gonna give that a shot. Still hooked to the back there. There we go. So this feels like this wants to go in here like this. not quite sure, but we're going to this is the orientation it's going to go in, because that's showing the back part at a 90-degree angle facing the inside of the truck the way it's supposed to be. So this is probably gonna have to go in here like this. Again, we need to get this thing lined up correctly so this threads in. Alright, so we got to thread it in just enough. I'm gonna hold our coupler together. We're gonna screw this on. Fuel hose is not helping. So we finished the brakes on the passenger side. That's all done on new shoes and new hardware. We have the hard line that comes all the way to the back and connects to our rubber hose up here, and that runs down to this. This has already been connected, and that line is already ran over to the driver's side. This side here, it's not completely tight, as you can see. I can still move it, but that fitting has been run down all the way to where it's snug. Now we're just gonna attach this here, and I know sometimes you gotta do a little bit of light bending, but we should be okay here. Okay. That one's tight, that one's tight. Come back here, and we're gonna tighten up this one here. And once we're done with all that, that should be the end of it. Just having to fill up my wheel cylinder, or fill up the whole rear part of the brake system, because it was that hole had drained all the fluid, and I looked in the master cylinder the other day and it was completely empty. So what we're going to do now is get our drums back on and adjust the shoes, and then we'll start filling up our master cylinder.